If you are relying on a pension fund at some point in the future, you may encounter some unforeseen difficulty. There have been massive levels of manipulation of the numbers with pension plans. They have tweaked them to ensure that they meet the guidelines and even fail to do that. When you look at the numbers for real, you see that they are even worse than you ever imagined. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. Today we're going to have our focus on pensions. Let's begin. This is an issue that I cover regularly here on this channel because I know it's so important. Many people rely on a pension fund today, or at some point in the future they're going to need it, and what they don't realize is that pensions will be cut. Looking at this here, overall grades for state teachers' pension plans. So you can look around the United States and see how these different states are graded when we look at their teachers' pension plans. Ultimately, you can see some of the typical offenders that are existent here, whether it's Kentucky or even California looks quite bad in this situation. I've shown you here on this channel before the severity of the pension plans, whether it is in Illinois, Kentucky, other places around the United States. It's not just the teachers' pension plans, but this is interesting to focus in on these in particular. So I'm going to show you different articles today that are all connected in with the pensions, and we need to understand that with so many people being reliant on this, what's going to happen when they cut back? Now, many will say they're not going to cut back, but I beg to differ. They've already done it, and they will continue to do it. The teachers' pension fund in Puerto Rico looks very much like a legalized Ponzi scheme, one that might hold a warning for teachers across America. It is a Ponzi scheme. No matter where you look, money goes in and it immediately has to come out. It doesn't sit there and gains year after year. You're not being added to the pool of other people's money. It's all basically redlining and actually in the hole. Puerto Rico, where the money to pay teachers' pensions is expected to run out next year, has become a particularly extreme example of a problem facing states including Illinois, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania, and others, of course. As teachers' pension costs keep rising, young teachers are being squeezed, sometimes hard. One study found that more than 3/4 of all American teachers hired at age 25 will end up paying more into pensions than they will ever get back. Of course, they're not going to give you what they promised. Look, I don't have a problem with these pensions, but we need to make some changes. We really do. Now, you've promised certain things, and maybe you have to stay true to those promises. But for the people in the future, you can't simply go on pretending that they're going to get something that they're not. Don't do that. Just admit the truth. That's the only way that we can ever have some ability to maintain peace and prosperity in the near future, because people are going to be pissed off, and you know what happens when that occurs. A public university president in Oregon gives new meaning to the idea of a pensioner. Joseph Robertson, an eye surgeon who retired as the head of the Oregon Health and Science University last fall, receives the state's largest government pension, $76,000. But guess what? That's per month. That's more than the average Oregon family earns in a year. Now, that's an extreme example, okay? Definitely. You can't use that as the example for how much people make. But take a look at this. More government workers are retiring, including more than 2,000, like Dr. Robertson, who get pensions exceeding $100,000 a year. That's too much. That ultimately is too much money to be giving out. Now, they've been paying into the system. They were told that they were going to get $100,000 a year, and they're getting that $100,000. So I'm not necessarily suggesting that that should be cut. What I'm suggesting is that we should stop lying to people to tell them that everybody's going to get that $100,000 a year. Just admit it. Just admit it. Come out and admit that you failed. You're not going to be able to uphold your promises. I just want the truth. Whatever you got to do, just admit the truth. Admit your failure and take it for what it is. Then we'll have an easier road, because if you tell them now and they don't need it for 10 years, they'll have time to prepare. But if the time comes and they're receiving their paychecks of $1,000, let's say every month, $1,000, $1,000, $1,000, and suddenly they're getting $800 or $700, you just constricted them. You just screwed them over. And I'll show you an example of that, okay? Take a look at this. This is talking about this particular individual. Her name is Patsy. I worked all those years and they did this to me. Okay, she kept, this is a small town, kept the town's books for 29 years, retired in 2004 on an annual pension of about $48,000. Now, because of this town's troubles, CalPERS could cut it to about $19,000. Less than 50%. I couldn't live on it, no way. I can't go back to work. I'm 71 years old. Who's going to hire me? It goes on to talk about this particular individual, goes into another individual. I just wanted to cover the fact that they are talking about cutting the pensions of people, not by 5% or 10%. In this case here, we're looking at more than 50%. How are people going to live on that when they've expected a certain rate of return at their later date? So they've been working into the system. Look, 29 years she worked for this, and she put her money in, paid her dues, worked her time, then she retired. She's in retirement. Let's say, I don't know, they had a few years of retirement. She's doing what she has to do, living her life. And then she gets notified that in a year, 2 years, whatever it might be, suddenly there isn't as much money as she thought there would be. We're going to make a little adjustment, a little modification to how much money you get. And that's not fair. That's not fair. But ultimately, they're going to have to do this. And it's called entitlement reforms. And you see the term reform being used oftentimes because they don't like to say cut, but you get that here, because that's why you're here, obviously. Well, there's more in the article here. I just want to go on just to give you an example, right, of what is happening right now. This particular instance, they're talking about one individual pension fund. I don't want to get into it all. Well, what they found in this case here was that, let me just read this. The little fund held far more money than it needed, according to its official numbers from California's renowned public pension system, CalPERS, except it really didn't. In fact, it was significantly underfunded. Suddenly, CalPERS began demanding a payment of more than $500,000. My board was somehow shocked. Okay, what happened? Well, it turns out that CalPERS, which managed the little pension plan, keeps 2 sets of books. Does that sound familiar to you? We see the government doing that all the time. This is the one we're going to show you. We're only in $20 trillion of debt. Nothing to worry about. Oh, well, actually, we're in, maybe it's 80 trillion, maybe it's 100 trillion, maybe it's 200 trillion. We got a few sets of books around. The officially stated numbers and another set that reflects the market value of the pensions that people have earned. The second number is not publicly disclosed, and it typically paints a much more troubling picture according to people who follow the money. This is what I have been warning about. This is what I have been telling people about, and the vast majority deny it. You look out there, all of these individuals relying on their pension funds will kick and scream and yell to make you believe that they're going to get their pension as it stands. Well, I'm telling you right now, I don't care what anybody says. They're already cutting back in particular instances. They've done it before, and they're going to continue to do it. There isn't enough money, and despite the fact that the stock market has risen overall from March 2009 up until present day, somehow, some way, the pensions are still underfunded. They should be skyrocketing. They have billions and billions of dollars flowing into these pensions, and no, you can't keep up on an average rate of 7% when the market has been rising so consistently. You have all these fund managers, you have so much money, you can't do it. You promised too much and now you can't deliver. And a lot of people are going to be screwed over because of it. And this ultimately is connected in with that. If I can just quickly, very, very quickly, okay? So when you look at this, I mean, I couldn't even believe this. So they're looking here at the statistics, okay? And there's a whole bunch of formulas that they work out to figure how we're going to pay people out, how much they'll get, and so on, all right? That's what this article talks about here in a long form. It's pretty long. But essentially, I'll tell you the basics. They have this formula, and one of those formulas that they're using here is talking about the mortality rate. So they're saying that the average individual is not going to be around anymore. They'll live to this particular age. So we need to pay people for X amount of years. Okay? We're going to need this much money each year. During those years, we anticipate that the stocks are going to rise so much, and so on. Okay? Based on how long they've been working. There's all factors, right, that go into that. But what they found was that these numbers can be changed. And these numbers, unfortunately, were a little shy of reality. They were expecting people to go at a certain time, but that's not happening. So suddenly they're coming up with shortfalls, all because of their silly little formulas that somebody, probably with a PhD, decided to put it all together and make sure it looked real pretty for the individuals that pay that salary. But that's not a good thing, because now a lot of people are going to be screwed over because all of these pensions are underwater, they're drowning, and there's no way that they can be rescued other than cutting back and a bailout, a double screw over for you and everybody else that's relying on these. This is not a good thing. If you're waiting on your Social Security, you're waiting on your pension fund, you're waiting on your deferred pension plans, anything, they will all be cut back, reformed, whatever you want to call it. Levies and taxes and everything else are going to have to come out of these. Okay, that's just the way it is. I'm just telling it how it is. If you appreciate the truth, then I would really appreciate if you would give me a thumbs up. When you give me a thumbs up, that's your way of telling me that you support my work, you support this channel, and you want to see these videos go higher up into the YouTube search rankings. All you got to do is give me a thumbs up. If you leave me a comment down below, I try to reply to everybody. I read all the comments. I go through as many as I possibly can. If you also want to join the 100,000 plus subscribers, just make sure you click that subscribe button. I post videos basically every single day, and I want to make sure that you join me on here. Last but not least, if you found this video informative, I know that you will find my books, The Money GPS and my newer release, Global Economic Collapse, even more informative. You can actually flip through these books. All you have to do is go over to Amazon. If you look in the link in the description there, you will see it. You'll go over there. It'll bring you to Amazon. They have a look inside feature. It's going to allow you to flip through the pages of these books to see if you like them. Take care.